tuned in to The Andrew Lawton Show.
Well, we've talked a lot about the changing tides in politics. People can become unlikely allies and unlikely enemies, but one of the most stalwart opponents of some of the very damaging and economically harmful environmental policies we've seen in recent years has been from a former Liberal member of Parliament, Dan McTeague. Now, I don't want to be reductivist. He's got a long and storied career outside of his time in Parliament as a Liberal MP. He was, like always, the go-to guy when I was in talk radio on gas prices, and now he's the president of Canadians for Affordable Energy and joins us now. Dan, good to talk to you in the flesh. Thanks for sitting down today.
Finally good to be here, and after such a long time,
Andrew.
Yeah,
there are some people that haven't followed your post-political work would be surprised when they look at you on Twitter and be like, former Liberal MP says what?
Yes.
But you've been such an incredible critic of a lot of this government's environmental and economic policies. And I wanted to ask you more broadly how you and the Liberal Party diverge so much.
Well, I think the Liberal Party diverges from where the Liberal Party was. Members like myself who had the consumer file, consular file, people who were always concerned about bread and butter issues, being able to make ends meet, recognizing that the country is a very diverse nation, not just physically, not just culturally, but in terms of its economy. Manufacturing, mining, forestry, agriculture, and energy. And all those things combined have been really at the core of why we're a wealthy nation. We have in this government, particularly under Justin Trudeau, a deviation from a significant one, to the point where these things are being excluded, ignored, in some cases reviled, and it's having an impact on the bottom line for every Canadian.
Is your experience, it's unique to you obviously given that you were an MP, but is your experience something you've seen reflected in other people you've spoken to where they've gone through a very similar trajectory to you on these issues or even other ones?
A lot of them have simply moved on. When I was elected, I was 31 years of age, 31, can't remember the time. Young guy, just married, a wonderful wife, and I was the youngest of the group. The average age was 55. Many of those members of Parliament are since deceased, moved on, or very much in their age. So it's hard for me to calibrate with others.
Yeah, that's fair.
There's no doubt that being in power has made a lot of people believe, hey, I just want to be a Liberal, I'm always a Liberal, I'll remain that way. I have never been a member of any other party, but this is no longer the party that I've served since 1978.
Explain to me what they're getting so wrong, because it's one thing to say I don't like the carbon tax because it's going to make things more expensive. You're actually an expert in this space. I mean, you know fuel prices better than anyone else, and you also, by extension, know a lot of the policies and drivers around those things better than most.
Party used to have something called pragmatism. It's really the way in which it survived and became the big tent party that attracted so many. On the right, on the left, depending on the region of the country, different languages, different cultures, different backgrounds, agnostics, whatever the case may be. There was always a place for you in the party, and you could express those, you could articulate those, you could actually make changes, private members' bills. That's been lost, and it's become very conformist, it's become very uniform, it's very rigid, and it's all really under the cult of personality of one individual. So whatever Justin Trudeau, and the name's important because of course that's why a lot of Canadians put them back in power in 2015, but they don't represent, I think, the common person as we're currently seeing today. And a lot of people feel estranged, not just from the political process, but this government in particular. I think it's a dangerous sign, by the way, because as I see this, without any, I am not a member of the party, I see the Conservatives moving further to the centre, picking up those votes, and they're basically legion. That's why they will win the next election.
If you were Environment Minister right now, or you were Resource Minister, pick one of those ones that has control over this file, what would be that vision that you would present, where you get to tackle all of these things that the government says are a problem and a priority, but in a way that doesn't damage and harm consumers and industries?
I would listen to those consumers first. I go to Quebec and realize that most people in Quebec support pipelines, not as the elites are saying. I would ignore the elites. The top 20% have a lot of money and don't care what this is going to cost them, have ignored the bottom 80%. That's where the middle class was. I want to do something tomorrow night, I'd say build a pipeline east, build a pipeline west. I don't say that because I like the industry. They don't like me, and I don't like them. And I've been predicting gas prices. It's caused them tens of millions of dollars in lost revenue. By predicting gas prices, by the way, it's going to be up 10 cents a litre between now and next week. It's already starting in Atlantic Canada. A number of reasons for that.
You heard it here first, folks.
That's right. So if you're paying $1.64 in Toronto today, you'll be paying $1.74 next week, Andrew. The reality is that energy is extremely important. It permeates our entire life. To ignore it, to trivialize it, or to create a narrative that says we can get rid of it is insane. At the end of the day, Canada, I think, increasingly is going to start to get back to those pragmatic ways and say energy is our future. We want to maintain our standard of living. We better reinvest in it and do the things right. And the rest, which the rest of the world is knocking on our door and asking for.
And I think what's interesting about that is that oftentimes you hear a debate, even among conservative politicians, about, you know, the value of a consumer carbon price versus something that's more targeted at industry. Now, I've always taken the view that that's a bit deceptive, because no matter what, that's getting trickled down. A company is not saying, all right, well, we're paying it, therefore it won't be passed down. The only thing that changes is you don't have the line item on the receipt. And in that sense, I guess a consumer carbon tax is somewhat more transparent. Is your view that the mechanism itself is flawed, or that there's a better way to do it?
Well, I think what we want, the aspirational goals are important, but we've done too much aspiration. We haven't done reality. And if we want to achieve those things through technology, then let's by all means do that. But by the way, while we're doing that, take inventory of the great things that we've done in this country. As I said, I'm not here to rah-rah for the oil industry, but Canadians have this tendency of saying, shucks, we're not great, we have to do more. Let's do that practically when these things become available. And it's nice to say no taxes, let's emphasize tech. We can do that, but let's ensure that we have and respect the laws of physics and thermodynamics. In all of these things that we want to accomplish, I think we have to be realistic. The world wants more energy. They specifically want more Canadian energy. And as a result of creating another 150, 200 billion bucks in economic activity, I can create more hospitals in this country. The Liberals of my time always said we are going to take the measures of ensuring that we build pipelines, that we get our financial house in order, so we maintain the standard of living that Canadians come to expect. Unfortunately, this group of Liberals has simply lost their way here and decided that those are no longer values worth holding. I believe the rest of the world is finally saying, as the Europeans are saying today, put a pause on this stuff.
Well, and that's such a crucial point. And I was speaking about this with Tony Abbott from Australia earlier, and one of the things that he brought up is that there are lots of people that say they care about this, but when push comes to shove and you ask how much they're willing to pay for it, it's amazing how little they really do, and how a lot of these policies are really luxury items for the first, for the elites. And,
yes.
and I think that's a point that's missing in Canada. I mean, when a lot of these measures are put forward, it's really saying that things like driving, which if you live in rural Alberta, rural Ontario, saying that's discretionary, when for a lot of people it isn't.
No. Look, carbon taxes are the low-hanging fruit. But when you start talking about clean fuel standards, which is not going to be rebated, which a lot of people don't know about, which industry is saying, yeah, we'll go along with it, comfortable in the knowledge they can pass it on to consumers.
Yeah.
Same thing for all of these other mandates. We want to pursue them, but I think we need to take a bit of a step back. Jean Chrétien used to always say, I want to look before I jump in the pool, make sure there's water in there. And he was right. I think what we've wanted to do is well-intentioned. And that's where Canadians are. They want to be the right thing, but they also don't want to do it in a way that's damaging their prosperity, their future. And as a result, turning a lot of people away from the very goals that the environmental movement wants us to be towards. There's a compromise. It's the Canadian way, but we become so uniquely focused on damaging one industry, manufacturing, oil and gas, mining, forestry, that we've done ourselves a significant economic and social disservice.
Dan McTeague, thank you.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for listening to The Andrew Lawton Show. Support the program by donating to True North at www.tnc.news.